So the next topic I want to hit really quickly today about Attorney General Barr. So, that clip I played from Jim Jordan, that was played in the hearing of Attorney General Barr going into the House Judiciary Committee. And I'll probably have clips for it tomorrow or Thursday or something from that hearing. But I want to just mention a couple of things about that hearing, just kind of the perspective about it. To start with, ever since President Trump has been in office, I mean, literally ever since he won, even before he took office, there has been a relentless effort by the American left to take him down, to remove him. We watched the whole thing with the now I think should accurately be called Obamagate. It's just Obamagate. It is what Obama and his administration put in place in the years 2015 and 16 and maybe even earlier. The abuse of the FBI and the Department of Justice for the purpose of pushing their Marxist agenda. You had the absolute collusion inside the FBI and the DOJ with the Hillary Clinton campaign, bringing about the completely fake Russian dossier, lying on their applications to go to the FISA court to get warrants to spy on the Trump team. You had a massive effort to take out Trump. Massive effort, millions of dollars spent on the farce of the Mueller investigation, which after millions of dollars and thousands of hours produced zip, zero, nada, nothing, because there was no evidence, because Trump did not collude with the Russians. And this is what they finally were forced to admit. But that wasn't good enough. Okay, so they are forced to admit that. But then they got into the Ukraine farce, the effort, and this was led by Nadler in great part, by the way, the same clown we were talking about earlier. But the effort to remove President Trump through this farce of an accusation related to the Ukraine and related to how President Trump had a conversation with the Ukrainian president in which he did nothing wrong, but he was accused of doing what Biden did and on open television, everyone's seen the clip, and yet the Democrats marched forward trying to take President Trump out. I lay that background out to say that all that has been happening as far as the Democrats are concerned since President Trump won the election is a relentless effort to remove the president, a relentless effort to destroy him, to delegitimize him, to ignore him, to go around him, whether it was the U.S. Army, we talked about earlier today, the U.S. Army putting on training programs, teaching using our tax dollars to train people in the Army that the phrase "Make America Great Again" is an indication of white supremacy. I mean, just evil at its core. But I'm getting around about Attorney General Barr coming to, so he's in Washington today. He's sitting there and being questioned at the House Judiciary Committee. And he did release ahead of time, Attorney General Barr released ahead of time his written statement. And this is, many people do this when they're called into Congress because you know the reason you're called and you want to write out what you're going to say, because odds are you're never going to get to say it. During the questioning, you'll be cut off, you'll be interrupted, you'll be badgered. And that is what's happening. Watch a little bit of it today. It's just badgering him. But part of what they're trying to do, and the reason that Nadler is just dead set determined to, if he can, humiliate Attorney General Barr, is that the left is very worried that it may just happen that Attorney General Barr and U.S. Attorney Durham, who is the main guy looking into the Obamagate Russia collusion hoax, just maybe there's going to be some outcome that makes it out to the news before the election. Just maybe we'll have indictments. Maybe we'll have names of people we've talked about in the show so many times, but the top players, including John Brennan, but top players, CIA and the DOJ and the FBI, actually named as criminal defendants, actually indicted by grand jury, actually prosecuted, or at least the beginning of that process. And what the Democrats are trying to do now is grease the skids ahead of time to make sure that America has been infested with the lie that Attorney General Barr is just acting as Trump's personal attorney. He's being unprofessional. He is not doing his job. And so when those allegations come along, if they ever do, you're going to have America listening to what you're hearing from Durham and Barr and those same Americans trained by what they were told in this hearing today and in other statements by Democrats that Barr isn't really objective, he's not really being fair, he's not really doing his job, he's actually just gunning for President Trump. This is an effort to delegitimize Attorney General Barr, and that is the main reason that Barr is up there today. The Democrats do not actually think Barr has done anything wrong. In fact, I'm sure they don't think he's done anything wrong. They're just thinking, how can we make him look bad? So Barr, to his great credit, submitted a statement ahead of time. So let me just tell you what I'm thinking about and what I want to talk about. So his statement is on our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage, under shows, drop down list of links. I have a link to his written statement. It really matters to understand it because Barr is very savvy. And he said in his statement, we're in a time of political discourse in Washington that reflects the politically divided nation in which we live. And he said, ever since I made it clear, I'm going to do everything I can to get to the bottom of the grave abuses involved in the bogus Russiagate scandal. This is the statement of Attorney General Barr, already submitted, and for the world to read and for Congress to read, for Nadler to read, says he is going to do everything he can to get to the bottom of the grave abuses involved in the Russiagate scandal. He says many of the Democrats on this committee, he's speaking to the House Judiciary Committee, have attempted to discredit me by conjuring up a narrative that I am simply the president's factotum who disposes of criminal cases according to his instructions. And he says, judging from the letter inviting me to this hearing, that appears to be your agenda today. So this is, I'm going to get to in a moment about how surreal and unprecedented this whole thing is. But a couple other points that Barr submitted, and so everyone can read, I urge you to read. He talked about how I took this job because I feel completely free to do whatever I think is right, to pursue what I think is right, and I'm going to do that. And he said he was, as an outsider, he'd become deeply troubled by what he perceived as the increasing use of the criminal justice process as a political weapon and the emergence of two separate standards of justice. And he's talking about this is why he was so upset in watching what the DOJ and FBI were doing in the whole Obamagate disaster, because two standards of justice were evident. He also talked about the George Floyd killing and how, of course, it was horrible. And of course, we stepped right in there and the justice system is prosecuting those officers involved. But he also talked about the history in America, how, yes, we did, in the early, decades ago, over 50 years ago, yes, we have a very unfair bifurcated justice system. And we have corrected what was so wrong in that, in our laws, in our standards of justice. And so he's basically getting at and talking about the idea that the left is trying to paint policemen, the policing function overall in this country, as infested with racism, with systemic racism. He's getting right at the political agenda of the left, and he's calling it out. He's saying, this is not true. Yes, we have people who behave badly and wrongly, and yes, they should be prosecuted, and no one's denying that racism doesn't exist in America, but he's calling out the left's agenda very directly, saying, but you're using this accusation of the police as being racist or engaged in systemic racism as a means to keep America divided. And he's very, very clear in defending the police and saying, that we've made great strides forward. He's really defending not just the police, which he is, but he's also just defending America. And he's talking about how the left manipulated George Floyd's death. He says some have chosen to respond to George Floyd's death in a far less productive way by demonizing police, promoting slogans like ACAB, all cops are the B word, the guy B word, I'm not going to say it on the show, and making grossly irresponsible proposals to defund the police. In this hearing, at least a statement made by Barr, rock star level, and I'll tell you the other kind of waste of time the Democrats have really put America through, and that is, I mentioned, since the time that Trump's been running and was elected, the Democrats have engaged 24/7, 365. All they're about is finding some way to attack President Trump and bring him down. It is the entire Democrat agenda. There's no other agenda in place except take Trump down, or if you read their platform, take America down, just continue and develop more and develop this snowball of racial suspicion and tension and division. This is the agenda of the Democrat Party. They live by creating racial tension. It is their purpose for being. That is the source of their power, is creating racial tension. So, bad enough the Democrats do that, but I'll also point out what really has been the consequence of this, among other things, is that Republicans, instead of being in Washington trying to address the many things we must be addressing, such as, getting a secure border, fixing our immigration system, perhaps looking at changes in tax policy, looking at environmental, all sorts of issues that could be looking at, most people in Congress, or many of them, are drawn into and forced into spending their time refuting the lies of the left. Jim Jordan, great example, fabulous guy, great guy. He had to spend the time writing out a refutation, a refuting of, a rebutting of the endless lies the left tells about Attorney General Barr. He, Jordan, put out a lengthy statement saying, all these attacks on Attorney General Barr are untrue, and here's why. Now, thank goodness he has the tenacity. Jim Jordan has the tenacity to do it, but this should not even be happening. This is what I want to get to in wrapping up this segment. This is a surreal time, a surreal hearing in Washington. Bizarre on steroids. The left is so determined to take down Trump, not just because they don't like his personality or his hairstyle. It's because he is getting to the heart of what the left has done to this country for decades. He is draining the swamp. He is calling out socialism and saying we're not going there and that we're not going to be a socialist country. He is dismantling the socialist effort that the left is making. He is striving to bring America back on the track of freedom, free markets, back on the track of being a country rooted in freedom. Trump is trying to bring America back to what it's supposed to be, and this is what is enraging the left. They can't believe Trump is destroying their decades-long effort to push this country over the cliff to Marxist socialist control in Washington. And Trump is instead trying to restore freedom in this country, restore the idea of America. So Jim Jordan, who could be doing lots of other things with his brilliant intellect, has to spend time, or someone on his staff does, addressing the lies the left tells about Barr and refuting them with truth. It is a bizarre, bizarre time. Can't get real things done in Washington because pretty much the GOP has had to play defense against all that the left is up to, all the left tries to do to destroy Trump and Barr and Durham and anyone else associated with Trump. So Barr, as far as I saw this morning, was holding his own in Washington. We'll probably play a few clips of that in that whole hearing in the next couple of days.